the Dawn, you're leading the charge. All right. So do you want to have introductions or how do you like, you're muted?
Sorry, I was trying to do many, many things at once. Can you give me
Under-
1 second to
Of
catch my
course, yeah.
screen?
Well, while you're getting ready, so I'm Missy Brown. I'm the interim deputy director of the Charter Schools Division. On my team, I've got Ted Farneth, I've got Robert Gallegos, Greg Boots, and Yaling Hedrick. And then our schools are Inspira STEAM Academy with Julio Rivera Tapia down in Las Cruces. We have Collins Lake Outdoor School with Maggie and Steve up in Mora. And we have Kat Duran with Equip Academy in Albuquerque. So, and we're going to admit Randall.
I'll get started since I think that we'll start with introductions, but thank you so much for inviting us to speak today about what LEAs, which includes charter schools, need to know about special education. So my name is Dawn Delphine, and I am the parent and community liaison. We have here some other members of the team. So I, unfortunately, since let's see, I can't see everybody with sharing screen. So I'll let you all introduce yourselves. So whoever wants to go next from OSE.
Hi, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Cassell, and I monitor corrective action plans that stem from state complaints for Office of Special Education. Nice to see you all here.
Good morning. My name is Kim Gonzalez. I am an education administrator, sorry, with the Office of Special Education.
I'm going to jump in there. Good morning, everybody. I'm Randy Rapinut. I am the manager for monitoring and compliance. Glad you're all here today.
Good morning. I am Catherine Quick. I am an education administrator for the Office of Special Education and Monitor Lead.
Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Daniel Rowan. I am also an EA and a program and support monitor with OSE.
Is Ashley here? No, okay. So what we're going to do is go through this presentation, and we will provide you all copies sometime later. A lot of these slides have links, hyperlinks that you can contact different people by clicking on the link or getting to resources. Not here today, but also here in spirit are Dr. Crystal Wood, who is a manager of professional development. She's a good person to get in contact with if you want training or to know what trainings we have. For the Office of Special Education, we have Ashley Collins, who might step in later, who is a low incidence disabilities specialist. And I think everyone else has introduced themselves. The purpose of our training today is help you all develop an understanding of what your special education responsibilities are. We will review core special education laws, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, or IDEA, which is a federal law, and NMAC, New Mexico Administrative Code, which has a state statute. And we'll provide you resources. And this matters because special education is a civil right that is ensured by federal and state laws. And charter schools are considered public schools, and you have specific responsibilities to students and families regarding special education. And all students with disabilities are entitled to a free, appropriate public education, which we just typically refer to as FAPE. Charter schools are LEAs in New Mexico. That means local education agencies. So charter schools operate just like public school districts do here in New Mexico. So you're considered a local education agency, which you'll hear us say often, LEA. And LEAs, which, like I said, includes charter schools, you're responsible for identifying students who might have a disability, evaluating them to see if they're eligible under IDEA, and then if they are, providing services to those students, and complying with the law, IDEA, ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, and NMAC. And since we might be tossing around a lot of acronyms and terms and jargon, we want to make sure you have access to this glossary. So you can always, when you have this this document, you can always refer back to it to know what we're talking about. Okay, so ADA, BIP. We'll try and define them all as we go through the presentation, but if you forget, that's okay. You'll have this to refer to. And Ashley's arrived, so I'll let Ashley go ahead and introduce herself.
Good
If you're
morning,
ready,
everybody. Yes, my name is Ashley Collins, and I'm the low incident specialist with the Office of Special Education. And I apologize, I'm having some technical difficulties at this moment, but I'm hoping that you can hear me, and I'm excited to be here to present with you guys.
Yes, we can hear you. Okay. So the legal framework surrounding, I believe this is my slide, correct? The legal framework regarding your requirements as an LEA for students with disabilities is, like I said, IDEA, Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act, ADA, and NMAC. And I will let the next speaker go ahead.
Okay, good morning. So we have a sections 504 versus an IEP, and students can have a need or a disability, but not necessarily qualify for special education. So this just outlines the difference between the sections 504 and a IEP. And a 504 plan is a broad range of disabilities that limit a major life activity, such as asthma or diabetes, or even a broken foot. They require accommodations, but not content or instructional modifications. And a 504 plan applies to academics and extracurricular activities, where an IEP, a student must qualify in at least one of the 13 specific disability categories. And there's some examples of autism, emotional disturbance, OHI, SLD, specific learning disability, but it has to adversely affect educational performance. Students will then require specialized instruction and services with instructional modifications. It also applies to students during the entire school day, including transportation, if it's documented as a related service. So when to use which one? If a student needs changes to the learning environment to succeed, a 504 plan is usually appropriate. If a student needs specialized instruction to address learning gaps, then an IEP is required. And just a note, a student can also be on a 504 and an IEP, usually not, but it is possible in special circumstances. And for the remainder of this presentation, you're going to learn about each of the 7 core IDEA principles. Next slide.
You want to go through them or no? Just
Well, and I think moving forward they will, but Child Find is a core responsibility for charter schools as well as LEAs. When you're considered an LEA, Child Find applies to you. Evaluations and their timelines are they're required. There's no I guess no leeway within how that operates. And then there is a law called that every child with an IEP is entitled to a free appropriate public education. Sorry, I'm stammering over this. And each child with a disability in special education will require an individualized education plan within their least restrictive environment. It is crucial that parents and students participate in the IEP meetings and have decision-making rights, and they have a set of procedural safeguards that protect them within the parameters of an IEP team and how they can go forth and ensure that their rights are being upheld. Okay, next slide.
Okay, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about multi-layered systems of support, MLSS. If that sounds familiar but kind of odd, some of you may have heard it as multi-tiered systems of support. We refer to it as multi-layered with 3 layers. Layer 1 being universal supports for all students, Layer 2 being targeted interventions for some students, and Layer 3 being intensive interventions for a few students. MLSS is the beginning of supporting students. It is our school-wide net to catch students before they start falling too far behind. Now, we are from OSE. Our focus is special education. MLSS is not necessarily a special education thing. It is, like I said, school-wide. It is for all of our students, making sure that we catch them before they fall too far behind. And it's important to remember special ed students are general education students first. Okay. When we start to have students that fall into Layer 2 or Layer 3 supports, it can raise a flag to us that special education evaluation may be necessary. But it is important to note that MLSS cannot be a barrier to delay evaluation. If you suspect that a child or a student may have a disability that is impacting their success in the classroom and their access to the general education curriculum, you must begin the evaluation process as soon as you can, and we'll talk about those timelines in a minute. Child's Find. This is our first area that Catherine mentioned as core IDEA principles. Charters, sometimes they have leeway with how they operate and how they run their school and all of that, except with the implementation of special education regulations. Child Find is in federal statute. It's also in New Mexico code. So it is a responsibility of the state and a responsibility of all LEAs to identify students with suspected or known disabilities ages 3 to 21 years. So if you're running a high school charter and you say, well, that's for the littles. No, it's also a responsibility for you. It applies to all students enrolled in your school, and the identification and evaluation processes cannot be delayed due to staffing or budget shortfalls. Thank you.
So evaluation and eligibility. So who can make a referral? So the caregivers, a parent or a legal guardian can make a referral, or it can be a referral made through the school by the teachers, the a team, the student assistance team can make that referral. How the evaluation requests can be made verbally or in writing, and there are timelines that need to be followed. So once you receive a referral from a parent or from an educator within the school, you're going to gather all your pre-screening activities. So any assessments that were completed, or if the student was participating in any interventions, you're going to gather all of that. So the team can review and determine if an evaluation is needed due to there being a suspected disability. So once the referral is made, you need to complete the prior written notice within 15 days of the request and address whether you are going to evaluate the student or not and provide that justification. If the team has decided to complete the evaluation, you must also get the parent consent within that 15 school days. The initial evaluation report must be completed within 60 calendar days of receiving consent, and the report must be given to the parents at least 2 days prior to the eligibility determination team meeting. If the child is found eligible for special education services, an IEP must be developed within 30 calendar days. So here is an evaluation timeline that addresses what I just stated. As you can see, there are some exceptions to the rule, and those are below. So if the request for evaluation is received 15 days before a school break, that is going to last 14 calendar days, then the public agency shall respond no more than 30 calendar days from the date of the request. There's the rule exception to the 60 calendar days of having the initial evaluation being completed. That is if a child is not produced for evaluation, or if the child enrolls in another LEA and the other LEA is making sufficient progress towards completing the evaluation. Then you see 3 for the 15 days after completion of the report. If the evaluation report is completed during a break, at least 14 calendar days, then the public agency is required to hold an EDT and IEP meeting within 15 school days after the students return to school. And the fourth exception is special education. Oops, I'm sorry, this is not an exception. Special education and related services shall be made available as soon as possible after the initial IEP meeting. So again, as part of the evaluation and referrals, the process cannot be delayed due to staffing or budget constraints. The evaluations must be comprehensive and non-discriminatory. An IEP eligibility is a team decision. And it is very important throughout this process to keep the caregivers updated on the progress. So who is the IEP team? The IEP team members, you must have a special education teacher, a general education teacher, the IEP case manager, an evaluator or diagnostician that can explain the reports. If there is a related service provider, you will include those people also. And you also need to include the parent. Okay, so you're going to schedule a meeting with your IEP team, and you're going to schedule the meeting with the parent at a mutually agreed upon time and place. It is not the LEA's choice to schedule a meeting when it fits their schedule. It needs to be mutually agreed upon with the parent. And you're going to document all accessibility needs on a prior written notice, such as language if interpreters or translators are needed. And you're also going to identify whether it was an in-person meeting or a virtual meeting. And we always encourage to use plain language in the IEP so that everybody can understand what is going to be provided.
So, an individualized education program is a written plan, and it is a legal written plan for a student with a disability. And it outlines their learning needs, their goals, and the special education services and supports they'll receive to gain access to the general education curriculum. It's created by the team, which includes the parents and teachers, and is reviewed regularly to ensure the student is receiving appropriate supports and making progress. Note that it's very important that if a student is not making progress, it is the responsibility of the team to investigate and determine why and make those adjustments as necessary. Next slide.
So in CFR 300.320, there are 7 components of the IEP that need to be in the IEP. So we have present levels of academic achievement and functional performance. The present levels is the foundation for creating the IEP. This is where we are going to draw the picture of how the student is performing, what is the student's strengths, what are areas of need, And we need to be able to include everyone's input in this area. So the general education teacher, the parents, the special education teacher, related service providers. You're going to outline their academic achievement and any functional performance skills that need work on. You are also going to include a statement in this area of how the disability is impacting the student. The next area is measurable annual goals. You need to identify IEP progress documentation. How will the parents receive progress towards the goals? There needs to be a statement of special education and related services and supplementary aids and services. There needs to be an explanation of the educational setting. Who will be providing this service? How often will it be provided, and how will it be provided? Will it be provided in the general education setting or the special education setting? Participation in state or district-wide assessments needs to be identified. If this child is a student who will be taking the alternate assessment, there is additional documentation that will need to be completed for that. Again, the schedule of services, explaining how often they receive the service. Do they receive the services for an hour a day? Do they receive the services for 2 hours per week, etc.? And the other document that needs to be completed when you have an IEP meeting is the prior written notice. This is where you are going to address all the items that were proposed, whether they were accepted or refused. And that it also includes parents' proposals to the IEP team. You are also going to provide the justification as to why the proposal was accepted or refused. And then at the age of 14, the IEP must include a transition plan and a statement informing age of majority.
And there are some additional pages that might be included in some IEPs for students with specific IEP eligibility. So for students that have autism, you will need to include the 11 autism considerations page. And that looks differently depending on which SIS you use, but there are 11 things to consider, and there are some resources on PED's website that elaborate on what each of those 11 considerations are. For students who are deaf and hard of hearing, they should have the IEP communications considerations page. And it is essentially focusing on 3 areas related to communication and ensuring that students who have an IEP eligibility of deafness and hard of hearing are being considered related to their unique communication needs. And for students who have what's termed as the most significant cognitive disabilities, who are determined to be eligible for the alternate assessment here in the state of New Mexico, which is the dynamic learning maps, there does need to be a separate IEP addendum that's filled out indicating their eligibility. So pay attention, those 3 things may be included for students depending on their eligibility or other criteria. Next slide. Also, just so that you are aware of some additional information that is helpful for students with some specific sensory disabilities. For students who are blind or have low vision, there are 2 documents that I have linked here for you. The first are Braille standards, and that is something that has to be considered for all students who have an IEP eligibility of blindness or visual impairment. And specifically, there should be some consideration of those standards when creating IEP goals to determine whether or not there needs to be a goal for the use of Braille. Additionally, there is the Bill of Rights for children who are blind or have low vision, and for students who are deaf or hard of hearing, there's also a Bill of Rights for you to consider and keep in mind when developing an IEP for those kiddos. And next.
Okay, as Daniel Rowan said in a previous part of this presentation, students with disabilities are considered general education students first. That leads into a discussion about the least restrictive environment. And as you can see, there's a graph that shows that the general education classroom is the least restrictive. Then it goes down the spectrum with special education classroom, separate or special school, homebound, and then finally instructions in hospitals, institutions, and residential facilities. So all of these represent the continuum. Um, the the IEP team is required to consider the full continuum of placement options, beginning with, again, the general education setting, in order to select the placement that is best appropriate for each student based on their individual needs. Placement decisions are individualized and not dependent upon structures already in place. Some of the related services that could be considered by charter schools and any LEA is that a student might be eligible for several related services as determined by the multidisciplinary team, MDT. Some of those services, excuse me, could include speech and language therapy, OT, physical therapy, social work, counseling, and other services as needed for the student and documented on the student's IEP. The charter school is responsible for providing services from PED licensed professionals.
Okay, so graduation pathways for students with disabilities and just in general. So House Bill 171 was passed, I believe, last year and was finally formally adopted and implemented this school year. So if you are familiar with graduation pathways prior, we had the standard pathway, the modified pathway, and the ability pathway. And House Bill 171 removes the modified pathway. We now only have the standard pathway and the ability pathway. So these changes are really significant specifically for your students with disabilities. Because many may have been on that modified pathway and now they will need to either be on the standard diploma and the ability pathway. This does not change those options for students that may already be in high school and may already be on the modified pathway. This affects freshmen of this year. So students that enter high school in the 2025-26 school year, that's when this goes into effect. So your sophomores on up from this school year will still have access to the modified pathway, but freshmen starting this year only have the standard and the ability pathway to choose from, or not to choose from, but to be on one of those pathways. If you can. And then, so standard diploma pathway, traditional option. The majority of our students will be on the standard diploma pathway. This is for students who complete the required classes, all 24 credits, and pass all the state tests. Students with disabilities can also earn the standard diploma. They may just need some accommodations, modifications to support them in those classes to help them earn their credits. For students with disability, this means that they can still earn their high school diploma. They can still pursue post-secondary education as long as they meet those academic requirements and take their state assessments. It's just a matter of what supports do they need in achieving that success.
The ability diploma pathway is an option to use that is available currently and will continue to be available. There is a stipulation for this. The only the students essentially who are determined to be students with the most significant cognitive disabilities, which should comprise approximately 1% or less of your student population, should be taking the alternate assessment and therefore are eligible for taking or having to graduate using the ability diploma pathway. So this is related to the alternate assessment, and the criteria that is used for determining eligibility for that assessment is the same criteria that is used for determining whether or not a student should be using the ability diploma pathway. So this is not just for students who have disabilities in general. It is directly linked to a memorandum that has been distributed by the governor that defines what the students with the most significant cognitive disabilities means. So that is also linked here in this presentation. So just be on the lookout for that. Greg, do you have a question before we move on?
I do. You said less than 1% of students. Do you mean like of the total population?
Yes.
We have so with these new charter schools, um, they're not going to know what students are going to be entering in, and some of them also are going to have like a smaller population. So, what would you recommend if like two or three students that are like of higher needs and supports do enroll? And they find themselves like having a higher than population of more than 1%.
Thank you so much for that question. Yes. So the Assessment Bureau within the Public Education Department is aware that especially for the smaller schoolers, smaller schools such as charters will have a smaller student population. So there are occasions in which we've seen, yes, the enrollment of one extra student taking the alternate assessment does push these schools over that 1% threshold. And that's just something when you are concerned about that happening, there is a waiver form that you can fill out on the alternate assessment site within PED. And you'll just need to go through that process and be in contact with whomever it is assigned through the assessment department within PED and just inform them of why you are concerned about that, about exceeding that threshold. And again, it's not uncommon for smaller schools such as charter schools to be in that situation. So that shouldn't be a problem. Did that fully answer your question, Greg?
I believe it did. Thank you. And I was just asking on behalf
Yeah.
of the people that were also on here that may have not considered that question. So
Yeah,
Not a
thank you,
problem.
Greg. I think that, yeah, we're certainly in a situation where hopefully we expect that we're going to have a higher percentage of special needs kids. You know, I would look at someplace like Albuquerque Sign Language Academy. I'm sure there's a lot more than 1%.
Accurate. So I can't speak as to what other schools have as far as their rates. But yes, there are schools that have much higher than 1%, but there are documented reasons for that. And still, every single year, they still have to fill out a waiver, just documenting the reason that they're suspecting for that. And then as time goes along, because the Assessment Bureau is approximately they've got like a year lag. So if you exceed that 1% threshold, let's say next year, for those of you opening next year, in 2 years, then you might be monitored or have to go in and just validate, determine some reasons and some areas or opportunities for improvement within your schools to ensure that you're staying as close or under that 1% threshold as possible. So again, those there are the two primary graduation pathways, the ability and then the standard pathway. So if you have any additional questions related to this, Dr. Crystal Wood, her email is linked here at the bottom of this slide. And she would be the best person to reach out with any questions, as well as in this first bullet point on this slide here, there is that link to the governor's memo defining students with the most significant cognitive disabilities in the CD. Next slide. So as far as special education service providers, it is really important to note that you as the LEA have some responsibilities in ensuring that all of your staff are licensed through the New Mexico Public Education Department. If providers are licensed through RLD or are licensed in other states, that's great, but they need to have a New Mexico Public Education Department license to work with staff. There are some specific roles that have specific needs as well. So, for example, as far as caseload managers for individuals with IEPs, only special education teachers licensed, New Mexico Public Education Department licensed special education teachers and speech language pathologists for students receiving speech only services can be caseload managers. So that's really important to note. It can't be a general education teacher. It can't be a counselor, even if the student has an IEP eligibility of emotional behavior disorder. It really doesn't matter. It still needs to be a special education teacher who is responsible for managing that caseload. Additionally, IDEA requires that it is a licensed special education teacher that is providing specifically designed instruction, which is why you have an IEP. And that cannot just be provided by a sub, an EA, a gen ed teacher, anything like that. Some schools find it hard to staff certain positions. And Maggie, I do see your hand. I'm going to get to you in just one second. Some schools do find it difficult to hire specific roles, specifically those related service providers. And they will sometimes use contractors, which is fine. However, it is still your job to ensure that those individuals are licensed through NMPED and that you're providing adequate oversight. So make sure that that is something that you've got on your radar. And then also this very last bullet links another document. I just tried to give you guys as many resources as possible as everybody on this team did, so that you would have as much as as we could predict that you would need to get set up. But this document lists the only positions that PED allows for non-licensed individuals to retain positions within public schools. So it's got, your transportation staff. I don't remember if some office staff I know are on there. I don't remember if it's cafeteria staff or things like that, but there is a specific list of staff that does not require New Mexico Public Education Department licensure. And all of those positions are on this one-page document. It is front and back, but it's a very small list compared to the number of positions that do require NMPED licensure. Okay, Ms. Dodd, what?
I just want clarification. So you're saying, of course, the case manager has to have their certifications, right? What about the person offering the services? They have to have their special ed as well, not just a teacher's aide license, not just another teacher coming in and offering services on that IEP.
What services are you talking about?
So when the child's being pulled for their services, the person who is actually delivering the services needs to be special ed licensed, correct? Or is it just the case manager?
PED license. So if it's an OT, they wouldn't have special education. They wouldn't have a special ed teacher license, but they would have an OT license through NMPED.
What if a school is using teacher assistant to do the servicing? They're
To
just a
provide the
TA. They just
special education, to provide
yeah,
specially
they are
designed
providing
assistance.
the special ed servicing.
So they do need to have supervision from a
Hmm.
licensed special education teacher, and that supervision does need to be quite extensive. It's not just a check-in once a week or once every couple of days, or here's a sub plan. I want you to run this today. It is that special education service, that special education provider is the responsible provider. If they've got support, that's great, but they are still the ones responsible for providing that content, that specially designed
Okay,
instruction.
I just wanted to make sure because we're going to be so small in order sometimes to service those hours, the TA may have to do that lesson with them.
If they're doing it, especially if they're just in the room, that's great. Like here, I've just explained this lesson. I want it to be done in two small groups. Um, you run this group, I'll run this group, and then halfway through we'll switch. Great, that's totally fine. But if it's, that there's no special education teacher in the room and it's just handing them worksheets to do, that's not going to cut it.
Thank you for
They-
clarifying that. I figured that was what it was because I've been teaching forever, but I wanted clarification on it because I've seen a lot.
Same.
Thank
I
you.
think we all have. So yes, thank you so
Yes.
much.
So data monitoring. So data is collected by our office for the IDEA Part B, SPP, APR indicators. So that could be like for initial evaluations, who are the service providers, suspension and expulsion. So those are a few examples. OSC also conducts monitoring and reviews for compliance with IDEA. So every LEA is placed on a 5-year cycle, and the monitoring team completes monitoring yearly. So if you are in a specific cohort, you may be identified to complete a self-assessment, complete a desktop monitoring or on-site monitoring. To see what cohort you are in, you can refer to a tab in the LEA Managed Information booklet. We have all our LEAs assigned to various cohorts.
Okay, so um, this is Dawn again, and I just want to remind everybody about engaging your families and your parents in the IEP because they're really vital and equal partners in the IEP, in the meetings, and getting together a plan that works for their children. Remember that the parents are part of the team, required to be part of the team, but also they're the experts on their kiddo. So you really want to get their input. It's really helpful to keep clear communications with your families as you're going through the process. Like it's not a secret what the evaluation timeline is, for example. It's fine to keep them updated. We're working on it. I take a lot of family calls, parent calls with concerns or complaints, and I would say a lot of them can be avoided if you just were really clear about communication, keeping them updated about everything going on. Provide every family and the older students, 14 years and older, with a copy of the procedural safeguards that outlines their rights as part of the IEP team. That should be done at least annually and also whenever they request it. We also want to say one of the things in the procedural safeguards is dispute resolution. And this includes everything from mediation and facilitated IEPs to state complaints and due process hearings. To avoid some of the more intensive corrective actions, I guess, you want to be open to mediation and facilitated IEPs if there are any conflicts with your families. That can help avoid some of the issues that we see coming in. And just again, I cannot stress this enough. Remember that the entire IEP team, which includes the parent, is the decision-making entity. Not just the principal, not just the parent, but the entire team. Oops, hold on. Okay. Some of the common pitfalls that are seen in special education, and I'm basing this partly on some of the calls that I get in as a parent and community liaison, is not having formal special education standard operating procedures. And this is also my experience, kind of being involved with the monitoring team. So get started right away with formal procedures on how are you going to do your child find? How are you going to conduct your evaluations? What are you going to do for service delivery? Who's responsible for every single element of those? Make sure you have that put down in a document, a standard operating procedure, and make sure it's really transparent what's going on and who's in charge. Do not delay evaluations. We went through the timeline. One of the things I hear about delaying like parental consent to give you more time than the 60-day evaluation window. Don't do that. That's not okay. So regardless of staffing or budget, you do have to follow that evaluation timeline. It's pretty strict. Make sure you implement the IEP that was developed with the team completely. It is a legal document and you are legally required to follow all parts of it. If something's not going right, that's okay. Come together with the team and make changes. It doesn't have to wait for the annual evaluation. But when you have an IEP, you have to follow it. Make sure you are being proportional in the groups of students that are getting evaluated and how you're doing your discipline. You can't over-discipline a certain group of students or under or over-evaluate a certain group of students. Make sure you're following appropriate disciplinary actions and removals from the special or from the educational setting. Make sure you are using trained licensed staff. That document that is linked, which you'll have access to soon, can list the staff or does list the staff that don't need licenses, but everybody else does. Make sure you document everything appropriately. Keep communication open with your families. And we strongly encourage you to attend Office of Special Education trainings and professional development. We provide a lot of really key information in our different offerings. I know before everyone logged on from our team, I know everyone was talking about trainings. It's like a full-time job to do trainings. And I get that, but still, we do provide information that is really important. So try to attend as much as you can. And just build your strong systems early on. It's easier to do it right getting started versus trying to correct things after a lot of mistakes have been made and state complaints are filed and due process hearings are had. So create your standard operating procedures right away as you're getting started. Please reach out to your education assistant from the Office of Special Education. You see linked towards at that last bullet, the LEA managed booklet. It will say who your education administrator is. We'll need to fix that. But reach out to that person. They can really help you go through the process of creating your SOPs. Create clear referral and evaluation processes. Collaborate between your general and special education teams. Maintain, again, I cannot stress this enough, maintain consistent family communication. Use the guidance that the PED provides and the technical assistance. We are here to support you. And also that LEA managed booklet, which is linked here, keep it updated. It's how we know how to reach out to you. So, your special ed director, your executive director, whoever needs to be contacted regarding special education concerns should be added to your line in the LEA managed booklet. Finally, we have different supports for you, guidance and technical assistance from your education administrator. We have monthly office hours the third Tuesday of every month. So next Tuesday is an office hours. It starts 9:30, I think. But it's in the LEA managed booklet. We do monitoring, so we provide support during the monitoring process. We give professional learning opportunities. We have links and resources for the laws, rules, and guidance. We have a newsletter that goes out monthly from the Office of Special Education with lots of great information, announcements, resources. So sign up here with the link when you get this document. We also provide information on parents and child rights and special education and 504 guidance. The Office of Special Education does not deal with 504, Section 504 information guidance, but Safe and Healthy Schools does. And so we have this link to Safe and Healthy Schools. Key takeaways. You have full responsibilities in special education as a charter school. You have to comply with IDEA, the federal law, and that begins right away on day one is when a student is enrolled in your school. If you have strong systems and open communications, a lot of problems can be prevented. Remember that we are a partner and we're here to support you, and share the trainings and professional development that we offer with the staff and parents. We have different things for parents too, so share that out. So we're here to answer any questions that you have in the next 10-ish minutes. We can let you know where to provide resource or where to find PED resources, and then this link will give you contacts for support. But before we take questions, I just want to list here, if you have more questions, you want more information on any different area, here we have a list of our staff, our team members that can support you in these areas, or at least point you to the right place. So with that, we're happy to take any questions.
I guess I'll jump in, seeing that no one else is. I know that for funding that special ed students, there's some extra SCG funding for them. I assume that's also kind of proportional to what their needs are, and low needs versus high needs. How about 504 students? Is there any special funding for that? And maybe this is the right group of people to ask, but I'm just curious.
No, there isn't any special funding for students on a 504 plan. That is
Okay.
the school's responsibility.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? This is an amazing opportunity to have this robust team from a PED bureau. All right, well, thank you very much, Office of Special Education team. That was really very great presentation. We really appreciate it. And if you could just send us, either me or Ted, a copy of that so we can get that to our school leaders, that'd be great. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
We'll do that. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Have a good week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Right. Now we are going to have Office of School Budget, but they're going to start at 10, so that gives us about 7 minutes. So I think it'd be a good time to take a break. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
So we've got our 3 implementation year schools. We've got Inspira STEAM Academy with Julia Rivera Tapia down in Las Cruces. We have Collins Lake Outdoor School with Maggie and Maggie Dodd at up in Mora. And we have Equip Academy of New Mexico with Kat Duran in Albuquerque. So they're all very anxious to learn more about what their interactions with school budget is going to be.
Perfect. Am I allowed to share my screen? Oh, and
Absolutely.
perfect. And I don't know if you were able to introduce me, but I'm Sarah Cordova, Senior Manager of School Budget. Sorry, I was a little late. I was across the street hearing a bill, so we were said. So
we appreciate this, you being able to give us some time in this busy session.
Perfect. Well, I'll go ahead and jump right into my presentation here. Please feel free to pause me if you have any questions. And Missy, if I miss someone, just pause me and let me know. I can go ahead and
Will do.
Okay, perfect. Let me just put this in presentation mode from beginning and let me share. Okay, do you see the presentation correctly?
We do.
Perfect. All right, so I will just dive right in to our first slide here. So what I want to talk about first and foremost is budget authority. So what is budget authority? So budget authority is if you receive any private money, public money, any type of money, even if it's a donation, those dollars must be reviewed by the PED before you can spend those dollars. So basically what you need to do is establish budget authority. So to do so, first you need board approval. So definitely need to get board approval to make that adjustment to your budget. And then you need to submit that to PED in OBMS, and your business manager will likely take care of all those steps. But I like to point this out because sometimes we hear things out there like, oh, well, and I'm not dogging on our PED folks here, but sometimes they also get a little confused and send out awards and say you don't need to put this in OBMS and you don't need budget authority. That's incorrect. Every single dollar you receive needs to have budget authority. So it needs to go through that whole process of getting board approval and getting PED approval. I'd like to note here too, so there's statutory authority for this. That is our highest level of authority there. And then we also further define that in our NMAC rule here, 62210. So once you submit those budget adjustment requests, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation, the department must act upon it within 30 days. Otherwise, if we don't, it's automatically approved. Generally, we have a KPI, key performance index, to get those turned around quickly. So we try not to get to those 30 days, but we have to review everything. So if you hear a PED employee say, you don't need to put this in OBMS, that's incorrect. You do need budget authority. So your business manager works closely with us on those budget adjustment requests. So they should be familiar if you have a business manager who's been in the field for quite some time. Okay. So let's dive into how do you establish an operating budget. So for our new charters, what you will need to know is that our budget season is quickly coming up. It's around the corner. So we start budgets between April and June. And this budget is for the upcoming school year, which starts July 1 and ends June 30. So this is a financial plan. This is going to be all your proposed revenues that you expect to receive, and then your proposed expenditures that you plan to spend with those revenues. So it's on a state fiscal year. So work closely with your business manager because if you don't have an operating budget established, you can't begin spending July 1 because you need that budget authority. So here's where you kick off that budget and gain that budget authority through PED to start spending those dollars that you expect to receive. All right. So some considerations when developing your budget. So by statute, budgets are due April 15th unless extended by the secretary. So generally, everybody wants a late budget due date. That's not possible. We have 13 analysts. They have portfolios of about 16 to 20 school districts and charters. So they stagger those dates between April and June. Generally, if there's a lot of financial problems, we schedule those budgets early. So don't be one of those schools who winds up in some financial distress because you will have an early budget due date. But statutorily, we always tell school districts and charters, regardless, have your budget ready by April 15th. We may give you an April 15th date. So New charters, it's a little harder because we need other items to get you started. So it may not be the 15th, but it is good to start planning, and we'll talk more about that as we go into the session here. And then your board approval. So even though you may have an April 15th date, you have to submit the budget to the board. That board approval doesn't have to happen until prior to June 20th. Although it is best practice to get them acquainted to your budget. So some of the recommendations we make to our districts and charters is present that budget early. And then if there's adjustments that need to be made, you need to have, multiple meetings with your board throughout the months, you have a monthly, but presenting those corrections and then submitting to PED. The final approval needs to happen prior to June 20th. So yes, you can submit a preliminary budget. Reminder that this is a proposal of expenditures. So your budget will change throughout the year as you figure out what your expenditures are really needing to be. But it is best to try and align best to what you think. Another thing I didn't put here is you do need community input on your budget. So something to the effect of maybe a email blast or notification out to your families who are enrolling children, just to have a meeting with them, or they're welcome to come to the board meeting to look over the budget and have some input into that budget. So that is a requirement under statute. All right. Accreditation is fairly new and I shouldn't say it's new. We've always had a statute to accredit school districts and charters. So you get a rating on how well you do your budget. I would like to note that this first part here, prioritization of funds, is not new. So this is something that is always in our General Appropriations Act and is in statute, that any school district or charter must prioritize funds in functions most likely to improve student outcomes. So again, your district, your school business officials should be really accustomed to our uniform chart of accounts. That's how you report those expenditures and codes. But the functions that we determine are likely to improve student outcomes are 1,000, 2,100, and 2,200. So I would work with your business manager as you develop that budget to see what percentage of those functions, expenditures over the total expenditures, how much of a percentage it is. So this is, in the opinion of the secretary, she may choose to have you revise your budget and move more dollars into those functions if she feels it's not enough. New charters, again, it's a little hard because you're new, you're starting your programs, you're not sure where your students are yet. We're a little lenient on that side, but just as you move forward in your budget years, you want to consider those functions and how many expenditures you have in those functions compared to other functions. So on the flip side, we don't want to see you exceeding dollars in administrative costs over our student outcome functions. And this is mostly in our operational fund. So our operational fund is what your SEG gets dumped into. So this is where we're gonna focus on, is that operational fund. And then another part of what you need to focus on, so our state equalization guarantee, I'm hoping a lot of you are familiar with how that calculates, because I think you had to submit, correct, Missy, a draft 910B5 and all that good stuff. So hopefully you're familiar with that. So this is new to accreditation. So what we will be looking for is that your budgeted expenditures align with your SEG generated amounts. So again, for new charters, this doesn't apply yet because, except for at risk. We don't allow you to project out special ed or gifted because we don't know what your student population will look like. So we can't allow you to project out something that you haven't identified yet when your students come in. So we don't know what type of special ed population or gifted population you'll have. So those don't apply for new charters yet, but moving forward, as you see your dollars generated in SEG, those dollars should be budgeted towards those programs. And your business manager should be well aware of the program codes in our chart of accounts that align with those. Our new charters do generate the at-risk right off the bat. So work with your business manager to align those programs dollars to the at-risk expenditures. And then another, oops, sorry, let me go back. Previous. So another part of accreditation is timely and accurate submission. So like I say, we do set you a budget due date. That'll come from your budget analyst. So we are expecting you to submit everything on that date. Otherwise, you will get dinged on timeliness for accreditation. Accurate submission, what this means is we do have, and we'll get into that where you can find that. We do have checklists. We do have a workbook that you can follow along your business manager to submit your budget. So if we find that we're having a lot of reworks on the budget, a lot of errors, that's where you can get some dings on the accurate submission if we're spending a lot of time with those errors on the budgets. All right. So what do you need to submit with the budget? Right now, we don't have the upcoming year budget files, but we do have last year's, which is a good starting point because likely nothing will change much. A lot of things we just update is for anything that comes out of the legislative session. And there's a lot of moving parts this session, which is surprising for a 30-day session. So they will change, I guarantee. So in here, we do have a workbook. Like I say, it helps guide you through what we ask of you in the budget. It's really good workbook to look at before you start developing that. And then an operating budget checklist. This is just a generic checklist to make sure you've turned in everything. And then the 901B10 approval of operating budget. So this is the document that requires your board members, your head administrator, and your school business official to sign off on when they approve the budget. So again, if your budget's April 15th and then your board date is June 19th, that's fine. This document can come after your budget due date. So we require wet signatures or electronic signatures no later than June 20th. And with this form, you need a quorum of your board members. So that means if you have 4 members at the board meeting, that's not a quorum. You'll need 5 members at least to have a quorum on your budget approval. And then we don't have any local charters here, but just to note, your parent district does have to sign off on that as well. All right. Some other documents that we do have on our website. Article 10A and 8, these discuss class size teacher load waivers, just ensuring that you are meeting the class sizes. If you are not, there is a waiver. Or if you need a waiver to waive those class sizes, there is a waiver on our website to do so. Salary assurances. This changes a lot during the session. So the salary assurance is basically assuring that you will pay your staff the minimum salary set forth in the session or in statute. So this has been increasing lately. Our teachers have gone up significantly in pay. Right now, they're currently at $55,000 for level 1, $65,000 level 2, and $75,000 level 3. A lot of times our principal salaries change too if those levels change because it's a multiplier against the level 3. And then last year we had changes to vocational ed teachers. They're required to have the same minimum salaries as regular teachers per level. And then we have educational assistants. They're required to have a minimum of $25,000 a year. Our hourly rate is $15 an hour. And then it also talks about any salary increases per the legislature. New charters, you won't have to do a salary increase because you didn't prior have employees. So unless you did, then the salary increase would apply. So I understand that this session they're looking to do a 1% increase for employees. Whether that passes, we don't know yet. So that's up in the air. That's one of the forms that generally changes according to the session. And sometimes, though, in there, they put some language that says average salary increase. Average means it doesn't mean everybody gets a 1%. It means in total, amongst all of your employees, all of those employees received an average 1%. So be on the lookout for that. Sometimes the governor strikes it and then it's a 1% for all employees, but it just depends. Your certified 910B5. So this will be issued by School Budget Bureau. This is to calculate your state equalization guarantee. And we'll get into this further, but for new charters, it'll be based on your projected membership. And then we will come 40 day of next year, we will adjust your SEG to any membership, the actual membership for 40 day, including special ed. So if you do have those students that are in special ed on 40 day or gifted, that'll be adjusted on your 40 day. We do have a tool on our website. This is just for projection purposes to help you start planning, utilizing the tool before School Budget Bureau issues the official 910B5. So it's available on our website, that same link, so you can start utilizing that tool to make projections. And then we also have, we used to collect calendars in an Excel form. There's still a tool on our website, but it's not updated for the new year. I may go in and update that for the new year as a tool, but please note that calendars are submitted in OBMS. And so your business manager or the head administrator will have access to that once we set you up in OBMS, if we haven't already. All right. So you've established your budget July 1. So you went through the operating budget season. PED approved your budget. Now it's July 1, and let's say that you have a new award letter that comes in that you didn't previously budget in your operating budget. So that's where budget adjustment requests come in. Again, remember, you need budget authority for everything. So if a new award comes in, your business manager should first submit this award to your board members to get approval to increase the budget, and then to PED. So that's done through OBMS on the PED side. So any modifications to the budget require board approval. So you would do new revenue that you didn't previously budget. You could have an increase to existing revenue. You would just need to submit the backup documentation for that increase. Also, just to note that we true up cash balances. New charters don't have cash right now, but for the following years, you do a projection of cash for next year, and then when your audit is done, we'll true that up mid-year. You could have a decrease to revenue, so we do want to see those adjustments because we don't want you to have more budget authority than you think. It's better to have your books in place and then you overspend. So that's really what the guardrails are for budget authority and budgets. So it's really good to be doing your maintenance, especially if you get a decrease in a budget. You don't want to still have it in your system and think you have that money and overspend. And then transfers. So let me go back, sorry. Again, your budget is a plan. So let's say you plan to have a contractor do some work, but instead you move that over to in-staff personnel. That's a transfer, and that is a budget adjustment request to change what your plan was. So that is doable. All right. Should I take a pause? Do we have any questions before I continue?
I'll ask a question, Sarah. Have you talked about, I I did get interrupted a little bit. If they can't make changes to their calendar without letting you know too, right?
Right. So, your calendar, during budget season is, we hope that you have it finalized. But if it turns out that you need to make adjustments, we do ask that you send us a letter on letterhead requesting the adjustments, also getting those adjustments board approved, and then we'll reopen your calendar to make those adjustments. And I didn't put calendars in here, and I know it was a hot topic last year, so maybe at the end we can talk about a little bit of the guidelines. Sorry about that. I totally forgot about that.
No,
And
I mean, the other thing that we've come across in years past are new schools that have told us their grade rollout, and then they decided, well, we got people wanting fourth grade. We weren't going to open up a fourth grade, and now we're opening up a fourth grade. You can't make those decisions on your own. You
Right.
have to be talking to school budget about, if you have decided you're going to just start with, your lower grades, but you're getting a lot of interest in your lottery form, that's not just a you decision. You have to talk to school budget.
Yep.
Sarah, I had, I don't, is it okay if I
Yeah.
ask a couple questions? I'm
course, Mike.
equipped board member. So two things. One, just practical, that actually I was in the middle of maybe doing, but now I have to rethink how we do this. So we had 3 commissioners request some equip polo shirts. I was going to pay for those on my own as a donation to Equip. I don't know, it might be $100 or something in total. I don't know what the total for 3 shirts would be. Are you saying, so there's no minimum to this system? Like we would actually have to go through and get board approval for me, let's just say it's $100. So for the $100, it would have to go through board approval, PED approval, and a bar. Do I understand that right? For that?
So if you're doing this out of your own dollars,
Yes.
I guess that's a little different since you said it's for your board members,
It's for the commissioners. There are
the
3
commissioners.
commissioners that wanted their polo shirts.
I could just tell the commissioners to zip it and they don't get t-shirts like that.
Well, I know Carrillo really was, he really wanted one. Yeah, I guess the 2 others did. So it'd be a nice thing for us to do, kind of a relationship building thing to do. I would love to do it for him, but I don't want to, go afoul of, it's a small amount. I don't mind money. It's a small amount for me. I don't mind, but I don't want to, create an issue after what I'm hearing here. So what should I do with that? Or if you want to get back to Kat on it or something, but I don't want to take time here if that's outside the realm. But that is something I wanted to do. The more maybe to your presentation here, when you said, just to clarify, when you said the budget can't, if I heard you right, can't exceed for at risk and special ed and that it can't exceed the SEG projections. Is that what you said?
No, it can, and that's
It
actually
can.
really good. So
Oh,
yeah,
it can exceed. Okay.
it can,
It
but
can't be below it. It just
so
can,
we
it can be
don't
lower.
really want it to go lower.
Lower. Okay.
So that's one of the things we'll look at in accreditation.
Okay. It can't be lower. It could be higher. Okay, great. And if you can just let Kat know about that, those shirts, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'll
Thank
take a
you.
look.
All right. Thank you. That was it. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So another thing that I really, really want to emphasize is our reporting periods. So we take a snapshot of your student populations that are enrolled. So this doesn't mean they have to be butts in the seat that day. That's attendance. But for your SEG purposes, these are the enrolled students on these snapshot dates. So your first reporting period is what is crucial for this coming year. So again, you're going to start off with projections, and then we're going to true up to your 40-day on Wednesday, the second Wednesday of October in 2026. So that'll impact your FY27 SEG. This is really crucial. So I recommend you get in access to the NOVA system if you don't already. Run those reports periodically, make sure they're correct, even before we take that snapshot. It's harder to clean up data while you're in that snapshot period. Work with your NOVA coordinators closely to make sure the data is correct. I didn't add this here. Next year, we will start accreditation on timely reporting of your membership reports. So the way the windows work is we take the snapshot on the second Wednesday of October. There's 10 business days for the school to make adjustments, make corrections, and then there's an additional 10 business days for PED to review and validate the data. So basically, you have a 20-day window to make corrections that you may need for the first reporting period. And then once all that's done, School Budget Bureau will send you your membership report to sign off on. So if there's any delay in that, getting those complete within the 20 days, you will be deemed on accreditation for timely reporting of membership reports. Another thing to note, Secretary is getting more, how do I say, she's looking more into these and timeliness. We do have a statute that says PED can withhold 100% of funds if the superintendent or charter rep is not complying with the membership reporting. So she has been sending letters out to some entities who are still delayed, even so on 40-day, which was a long time ago. So keep that in mind. Run those reports early, even before the snapshots. The next two is what's going to be important for your charters in FY28. So starting in FY28, your membership is based off prior year data, and it's the average of the 80th and 120th day. So we'll average your membership on those two periods for FY28. So again, it's all through these periods are really important for funding coming up. So you just want to make sure you double check all those, make sure they're accurate before they get to school budget and we send out your reports. So keep that in mind. And then I talked about that here. Just check them early, run them often, and get into Nova. All right. So we talked about this, sorry. So majority of it is 80 and 120-day reports average. And this will apply to you in 28. So in 28, 40-day is still important. So what happens with 40 days? So growth units, especially for new charters. So in fiscal year 27, we're going to ask you again for projections for fiscal year 28. You're likely going to be growing because you're a new charter. What we tend to see with new charters is they overproject, and that's really hard for new charters, especially if the unit value doesn't change or the unit value goes down. So if you overproject for 28, and then on 40-day, what your actual membership comes in as, you're likely to get a budget decrease. So keep that in mind as you do your projections to be as close as possible as you can be. I know we don't have a magic ball, but it's really important that you're planning ahead and you're not impacting your budget negatively. So another thing that we talk about with charters, especially growing charters, if you want to be really conservative, and let's say the next year you actually get exponential amount of students that you did not budget for, you did not project. What we can do here in School Budget Bureau is called a cash advance in SEG. So we could actually advance you a payment on top of what you're already receiving until such time that we make the 40-day adjustment. It's not going to be on top of what you're entitled to, but it's just going to be an extra payment to help support that increase the needs for maybe more teachers, the needs for special ed services, so on and so forth, until we make that adjustment on 40-day. Remember, 40 days, not till October. So
Sarah?
again, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I just dawned on me. I heard that there might be a potential of the rural units going away. Is that?
So no, it's not going away, but it will. The House Bill 253, 235, forget. What it does is it doesn't allow for distance learning students to be counted for the
Okay,
population units.
good. Phew. All right. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
It'll still be there. And then new program units. Sorry, I needed to indent these a little. New program units. So definitely if you're planning to have a bilingual program or a fine arts program, please reach out to the program managers. We will also send you a form to give us projections for those, but you do have to apply and you do have to be approved for those two programs. So I think one of the new charters may have a planning to have a bilingual program. So we'll work with you and the program manager on that as well. Okay. All right, so we took care of the budget, we took care of the calculation of SEG. How does the money flow to you? So each month we distribute the SEG. So we basically take your budgeted SEG, divided it by 12, and we disperse that by the 10th of each month. We try to. Just note for cash flow that July and June distributions can be late. So June, that's your first month of starting your charter. Anticipate it being later than the 10th. This is because we're running through budgets. And then there may be some likely changes in the session. So June is generally late. And then July, I do it, oh, sorry, I mixed it up. June is because we are gathering all the data for calendars. So this is because we'll issue your 910B5 before your budget is due, but we won't know your calendars yet. So that comes with your budget due date. So you will develop your budget, and if you qualify for K-12 plus, then you would enter that into your budget on your own. And then come the June distribution, we need to gather all that data and then get the payments set up for June. July is generally late because we're in the middle of budget season. Oh, I did mix them up again. Sorry. June is when we're in budget season and July is the start of the year. So it's just delayed during those 2 months. And then just a note on the unit value. So the unit value is preliminary at the beginning of the year. This is based off the session. So as the session goes on, we'll learn more about how much will be in SEG. This year it was $4.5 billion. I'm gathering next year it's going to be roughly $4.9 billion, give or take. We'll see. We're in a 30-day session. It ends in March. So likely by spring budget workshop, if you're attending, we will release the preliminary unit value. Why is it preliminary? It's preliminary because of projections. So again, new charters, we don't know what your student population will be. So we're taking a guess on how much units we can send out, how much of that unit of the value we can send out based on that $4.9 billion. And then come 40-day, we know more. We know more how many units there are statewide, and we adjust it, which is called the final unit value. So per the House Bill 2 or General Appropriations Act, we must set the final unit value on or before January 31st. This is really important to know. A lot of times people think the unit value goes up. That hasn't been true the last 2 years. It stayed flat. And it hasn't been true in the past. It has gone down. Majority of the time it goes up, but keep that in mind as you are working through your budget. We're not guaranteed an increase in the unit value. We're not guaranteed a unit value that stays flat. It could go down. We're working through a bill now that could actually either go two ways. It could decrease the unit value, or depending on if they pass the bill, if they don't pass the bill, the unit value could go down. If they pass the bill, the unit value could go up. So it's up in the air at this point. I'd also like to note this year they actually passed a bill to extend us more time to set it in February because we don't have all the data yet. So we still have 2 districts pending their 40 days. So that bill extended us to set it in February. On a usual timeline, though, Once we make that final unit value adjustment and any 40-day adjustments, expect to see your SEG adjusted in February. So again, between July and January, you're receiving a projected amount of SEG. Keep that in mind.
We have a question from Steve at Consley.
Sure.
Yeah, so is the first payment we're going to receive as a new school, will it be in June or July? I assumed it would be July.
In July. In July, yeah.
Okay. So now it was confusing because you kept on talking about June, you don't have stuff. I was thinking I was excited we might get our first payment in June. No, okay.
Sorry, I confused it. But anticipate at the end of your school year in June
Okay,
that it could be late. So just keep that in mind for those two payments. It
Okay.
won't generally fall on the 10th. Okay, so here's what we will be asking of you coming up shortly. So we will be asking for your membership projections. And these are generally due October 15th by statute. But because you're a new charter, we give you a little leeway to get established, your planning year, implementation year. I don't think we've set you up in OBMS yet. I'll have to double check. But what these projections will do is establish your SEG dollars. So we will send you a form. It's submitted through OBMS, but since we don't have you yet in OBMS, I think we need your NOVA number. I don't know if that's been established yet. So we'll just submit you a form and then later we'll get into OBMS and update it. But we'll need your projected membership that you expect to have next year and then any new programs. So those are your fine arts programs and your bilingual programs. So if you plan to have students in those programs, we need those numbers. But then the following year, we will ask it of you on October 15th. That's the due date and it's submitted through OBMS. Some other reports that are really important that we'll be asking of you next year. Teacher cost index. So the teacher cost index is a multiplier in the SEG. So if you by chance have hired teachers that maybe have lots of years of experience and are level 3, well, obviously you have to pay them more than a level 1 teacher. So what this index does is it gives you a multiplier to give you a little more money if you have higher level staff with more years of experience. That'll be coming up in November time of next year, where you'll have to submit your staff levels and years of experience. This is only for the operational fund. But for your first year of operations, you take on your district's TCI. So wherever you're located, that district, you will take on your teacher cost index of that district, because that's all we have since you don't have prior year information. Also, something to note, as you start hiring people, or if you already have, please double check to see if they are certified through the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards. They are entitled to a stipend. So they must be licensed and they must be employed on or before the first reporting period. So people get confused on this. It used to only be for teachers. They changed that, I think, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, maybe. Now, any licensed employee is eligible for this. So if you are an administrator who is nationally board certified through professional teaching standards and you're licensed through PED, you're eligible for this stipend. There's a new one this year for nurses. So if you have a level 2 or 3 school nurse who's a registered nurse and is certified through the National Board for Certification of School Nurses on or before the first reporting period, they're also eligible for a stipend. So we'll collect those names from you in November, but please, if you're hiring people, I would just get their certification off the bat. I would ask them, are you nationally board for professional teaching standards certified? Or if you have level 3, 2 or 3 nurses, are they national board certified of school nurses? There is actually directories too on our website, online. I can send you those links. You can look up their certifications as well. So keep in mind, this flows to you through SEG, but it needs to go straight to those employees. So the multiplier is 1.5 times the final unit value. So don't set it on the preliminary unit value. Reminder, we set the final unit value by January 30th. So my recommendation is I would not send these stipends out until the end of the year because you don't know what the final unit value will be. But just keep in mind that's pretty hefty amount. Our unit value is 6,801.35. So right now that stipend amount is based on the preliminary $10,202. So it's really worth, in my opinion, getting certified, sorry. Okay, I'm talking a lot. I better hurry it up here. So financial reporting, we do it on quarterly, but again, if we start seeing issues, financial distress, low cash balances, we can put you on monthly reporting. Please submit, and your school business official should be well aware of this, but this is a part of accreditation too. So this is why I bring it up. Your cash report, it must be in Excel PDF format. Your cash reports also need to be posted to your website. This is statutory. I can send you the statute if you want to see, but you should be posting those cash reports quarterly on your website. And then you need to send us your bank statements. Q4, there's a few more things we ask. We ask that you update your contact information because a lot of things change. You want to ensure that all the users in OBMS are active users. They're not people that you no longer have employed with you. And then we also look at average salaries for that year. So those are additional things that we take a look at. Here are the due dates. It's always due the month ending the period end. So for Q1, it's due in October, and then so on and so forth. I want to make note of Q3 though. This is where a lot of school business officials get behind because budget season is coming, but reminder that it's a part of accreditation if you're not timely. So this is due in April, and that's right at the start of budget season. So please be on your school business officials to get that in on time so you don't get dinged. If you're monthly, it's always the month ending the quarter end. So if you were submitting a report for January, it's due at the end of February. So again, here on accreditation, you will be rated on timely submission, sufficient submission. So if we have to constantly reopen, there's a lot of errors, you'll get a score for that. And then the last thing is similar to your budget. We want to ensure your expenditures align with what's generated in SEG for at-risk, bilingual, special ed, gifted, fine arts. Oh, I put bilingual twice, but so we want to make sure those expenditures align. So if you have a bilingual program, we want to make sure you're spending money on your bilingual program. All right, just some things to consider. I would be on top of your school business official on request for reimbursement. So if you're getting any federal dollars from PED or state flow through dollars from PED, school business officials are allowed to submit 2 RFRs per fund per month to get reimbursed. So be on top of that because if they're delayed, that holds up your cash balance. So you have less money to spend in your operational fund. So what happens is you're basically supporting expenditures from your operational fund until such time that you get reimbursed from PED because it's after the fact. RFRs are. So keep that in mind, especially during June and July when SEG may be late. So June 7th. So June 7th is the last day to submit an RFR for anything up until May 30th. And then July 7th is the last day to submit RFRs for June. So when you get into July, you actually can't submit RFRs for previous months. You can only submit an RFR for June. So if your school business official missed the window to submit an RFR for anything between July and May, you may have to cover that with your operational funds and you won't get those dollars from the feds or the state money. So be really cautious, be monitoring that. Last but not least, well, we'll get into calendars now that I have 10 more minutes. Some things to take a look at. These are easy things as you go through your financial audit with your school business official. that you can avoid. So if you're in a rural area, Mora, maybe, we have a statute that says you must deposit dollars within 24 hours. If you're in a very rural, remote area where, say, the bank is miles and miles away, it's too far to go there every day within 24 hours, you can submit a request to us to waive that 24-hour deposit. And generally what we say is if it exceeds $500, you go to the bank. Otherwise, it's once a week. So you can submit those waiver requests to us. If not, you'll get an audit finding for not depositing within the 24 hours. Again,
what kind of funds, are you talking about? That
so if you
obviously
get,
SCG, you do it yourself.
no, so like if you get cash, so let's say you have fees from students, maybe you have a fundraiser or games or certain things that you're collecting
Okay.
money, that's, or,
Okay,
or
not
checks.
SCGs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, like you could have a pizza day and the kids give you $1 each for the slice of pizza. It's anything like that.
Right. Yep. Untimely submission of financial reports. That's an easy one for auditors. They always ask us to, even though we reported on accreditation. They'll ask us if you submitted timely, and they could give you an audit finding for it. Negative budget balances at the function level. So your business manager should be really familiar with this. Every quarter we review cash reports and expenditures and revenues. We will flag this for your school business official every quarter if there's negative budget balances. So they should be doing that constant maintenance so that they can avoid an audit finding. I've seen auditors like give a finding for $3 in the negative. So really important to look out for this one. Cash transfers for old funds, you likely won't see this for a while, but it's just something I like to put on here. So for example, let's say you didn't get reimbursed for an RFR from PED, they denied the expenditure. So it'll sit as a negative in that fund. So you need to make a cash transfer from operational to cover that negative. So if you leave it sitting there for many years, they like to give findings if you don't clean out your negative balances. I have time for questions, but do you want me to go into calendar guidance? I think we want to do that, right? I'll go to that.
Okay, yeah, I'd say, I mean,
Let me go. So so that same link where we have our budget files. Again, these are last year's, but it's still a good guide. We have our calendar guidance here. Let me zoom in because I have a big monitor and it doesn't want to zoom in. So hopefully you can see it. But here is our calendar guidance from this year. It's I would read it, and I feel that it gives a lot of good detail on what is allowed and what is not allowed. So if you're planning to be a 4-day week, please note that you cannot have instruction on the 5th day of the week. If you do, that'll turn you into a 5-day week. Are there any charters that are planning to be 4-day week this year? I don't know if we do. Okay, perfect. So just keep that in mind. If you have any week that has 5 days of instruction, you will be flagged as a 5-day week. So keep this in mind when you have closures. We ran into this a lot this year. Let's say you have to close because of inclement weather and you plan to make up that day. Please don't make it up on the 5th day of the week because then you will become a 5-day week.
When can you make it up?
So we have, and we'll go into that, we have options for remote instruction. So what I recommend to schools is if you haven't met the caps for remote instruction, if you are equipped and you know that you're going to have inclement weather, do that remote instruction on that day. Otherwise, you have to add it at the end of the year or the beginning of the year, or find some other holiday is what we've been working with schools. I think some of them are doing it on President's Day. They had off, but now they're choosing to do a makeup day on those days. Otherwise, I would plan those makeup days so your families are aware at the end of the year. So let's say I'm planning 3 days for inclement weather at the end of the year. We'll use them if we need to or not, depending on our closures. Don't report those makeup days in OBMS though, because that'll mess up your instructional hours. We want to know what's actually happening. So we have two things, instructional hours and professional work hours. So again, instructional hours is as such here. You can read it. It's general instruction. Professional work hours though, those include home visiting and parent-teacher student-led conferences, and then any professional development with your staff. So a lot of people are confused with our rule, thinking that parent-teacher conferences are instruction, but they're not. They're professional work hours. And student-led conferences are parent-teacher conferences. So we'll talk about remote here. So we define synchronous. So that's time online in real time with a teacher. And then anything that's at a school time activity doesn't count towards instruction. So it talks about that here. School break, summer school, anything after the first bell, before the first bell or after dismissal. So no tutoring, nothing like that.
Sarah, could you drop that document in the chat, please?
Yes, of course.
Thank you so much.
Let's see. I'm not used to Zoom here, so let me put that in there.
And I missed where you originally got this document from, the link, the
Yeah,
page that
sure.
you run.
No problem. I'll put this link in here too.
Thank you.
Sure. So instruction must for the entire year, all students must receive 1140 hours. But there's a but. 60 of those hours for grades K through 6 and 30 of those hours for grades 7 through 12 may be used for professional work hours. So you can see this here, this graph. So the minimum instructional hours is 1080 for K through 6 and then 1110 for 7 through 12 because you have room there for professional work hours to come to the 1140. Go ahead, Mike.
You broke out the hours into those two different for teacher, two different categories, professional and instructional. Are teachers typically exempt or non-exempt employees? Does that factor into how we pay them, or is this just as far as tracking what they're doing?
It's just as far as how you're tracking what they're doing in terms of meeting the hourly requirement.
Okay. Are they typically exempt or non-exempt though, teachers in New Mexico?
I'm not sure, actually.
All right.
I don't
Okay.
know. So here's the kicker. You can exceed this instructional hours as much as you want. Totally fine. You cannot, let me backtrack. You can exceed these professional work hours, but anything above and beyond will not count towards the 1140 hours. So if you go 70 hours, we're still only going to count 60. If you go 1140, we'll count that 1140 plus the 60 to get to your instructional hours. So keep that in mind. If you have snow delays, cancellations, you still have to maintain that 1140 hours. So if you go below that, you have to make it up. Regardless. A full day is 5.5 hours, but no more than 7.5 hours. And a half day is at least 3.5 instructional hours. But you cannot include lunch. So technically, a full day would be 8 hours if you're doing a 30-minute lunch, if that makes sense. But please note statutorily that the lunch period must be 30 minutes and 20 minutes of that seated time, 20 minutes must be seated time for grades K through 5. You can't include lunch, recess, and passing periods towards instructional hours. So if that recess and passing period is connected with the lunch, you have to deduct it. You have to take it out, basically. Here's where we talk about remote learning. So PED allows 4 remote learning days, and you can't exceed 32 hours in the year. But this is really kicker here. At least half of the day must be synchronous. So live interaction with the teachers, and then the rest of the day may be asynchronous. So if you plan to use some of those remote days for cancellations, so on and so forth, you can do that. Otherwise, there are waivers, or so let's say you had crazy snow for 5 days. You can request a waiver to exceed those caps through the secretary. The only other thing that you can exceed this is through your chartering contract. I don't know if any of the new charters have that. If they were provided to allow remote learning beyond these caps, then
No, yeah.
okay.
It's their contract negotiations are in March, but I don't think any of these schools are asking for
Remote time. Okay.
that.
Okay, perfect. So then you have to adhere to these remote caps. Please note, regardless if you have elections in your area or it's impacting you, election day is a holiday. It has to be a holiday. That is generally November, what was it this year, 11th? I don't know. Let me go back.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be
So you
November
have to
10th.
make sure you plan for that in your calendar. Sorry, I think I'm almost done. Oh yeah, we talked about cancellations. You have to make up the 1140 if you drop below. You can submit waivers. So if you, let's say you're a 5.5 hour day or 3.5 hour day, and you have to cancel for an hour, that drops you below the minimum hours. You can submit a waiver to have that count towards your 1140. Last but not least is K-12 plus. So if you're planning to exceed 180 days for a 5 day or 157 days, 55 days for a 4 day, you get more money in the formula. But please note that if you qualify and you cancel school, you have to make up those days to maintain the funding. So this is different than the 1140. It's a local decision if you don't drop below the 1140 to make up those days or not, those hours. That's up to you. If you're still within the 1140, you don't have to. But if you qualify for K-12 plus and you drop days and you want to keep that funding, then you have to make up the days. Otherwise, we will adjust down. So I think that's really all it.
Great. That's a lot, Sarah, and thank you so
Yeah.
much for your time. It's such valuable time. But we do have our next presenters here. So we thank you, Sarah. And if you could maybe send me your PowerPoint and I'll make sure that the schools get it.
Perfect.
Thanks so much.
My contact info is at the end, so reach out if you
Yeah.
have any questions. Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Sarah.
Thank you.
All right. And we have Jessica Pacheco and Carlos Contreras from
Student, school, and family
Student
support.
School and Family Support. Yes, thank you. Welcome.
Yes, thank you for having us. My name is Jessica Pacheco. I am the Title I Specialist for the Student, School, and Family Support Bureau. Today I will talk a little bit about eligibility for Title I Part A, and as well as what type of information we will need and we will be requesting in September to determine that eligibility. Later on, I'll be joined by Carlos Contreras from the Language and Culture Division, and he'll be talking about some things regarding Title III.
Awesome.
All right, so let me pull up some of the information that I have ready for you today. All right, so I believe that I did present in November, and I essentially talked about some specific things related to Title I Part A, more specific to what type of programs can be operated with Title I Part A. But I really thought that it was important to talk about eligibility and, again, the type of data that's going to be required to determine that eligibility. So, in order to calculate the state-derived poverty count that determines eligibility for Title I Part A, there will be some data that we look at in NOVA. This data collection takes place prior to the NOVA 40th day data submission window. And so since it'll be just a little bit before that 40th day data submission, it'll be around mid-September that we reach out and ask for this data. I want to pause for just a moment before I continue, just to let everybody know that if there are any questions during the time that I'm presenting, you are welcome to either write questions in the chat or you can unmute and we can talk about that there.
A real simple question. Is NOVA the same
Sure.
as what Synergy is going to be?
So Synergy, that is a student information system. So with Synergy, the information that's included there, that is the information that's pushed through to NOVA. That's where we sort of see all of that data at the state. So we're able to view the information that is in Synergy. So in other words, the district or the state charter school, they will input that information into Synergy, which will then be pushed to NOVA, which is what we are able to see. So we have a process for requesting this data. And so again, like I had mentioned a little while ago, this will be in around mid-September. An email will be sent to the state charter school director and federal program director if there is one at the school. The state charter school will be given a timeline for the data submission, which is about 2 weeks. I know I haven't talked about what exact data we're looking for, but I'm going to mention that in the next couple of slides. If the state charter school needs assistance with their student information system, such as Synergy that was just mentioned, or if they need assistance with any NOVA support in general, we'll loop in the NOVA team because they're the ones who have direct access or a little bit more information about how those systems work and talk to each other. So the data that we look at, it's called the zip code report. This is what we pull in NOVA. This snapshot over here shows us exactly where this is located. So it'll be under Title I. This report is called the Direct Certification Students with Address and Zip Code Report. And so this data collection includes student demographic data as well as food service related data. And that's what generates this information here. That's what we look at. When we open this report, we see a couple of important things here. We see the total enrollment counts, which is listed over here under where it says the location count and district count. Also, we'll see the student's address. It's listed here. So the reason why this zip code report is important is when it comes to eligibility for districts, that information is geographical based on the students that live within the district limits. So they have their zip code. For state charter schools, funding follows students. So if a student lives within the zip code area of the district and they go to a state charter school, that's how that allocation is essentially I guess that's how it is calculated for the state charter school. And then same thing for the low income percentage that information follows the student. So that's why that data is important when it comes to the food service information and as well as just the location in general, because that money from where the student is coming from, that's going to follow them to that state charter school. So once we look at this report here, we will reach out to verify that the numbers are correctly listed on the report. In other words, we'll make sure that the total enrollment number is the exact number that's at the state charter school. So over here, we see that number is 32. We would reach out to verify if the total number of students there is 32. If not, then whatever additional students would need to be added will be included there. Sometimes also the address is missing. So we'll see the students that are listed there, but sometimes the address won't. And so we'll reach out and make sure that that's included as well. And so if there's a discrepancy, the state charter school will have to ensure that all food service and student address records are entered in their student information system or their SIS. So, approximately in February, our Bureau will reach out to the eligible state charter schools. They'll complete a shortened version of the Title I Part A application for school year 26-27, including the assurances. And so this document is pretty minimal. It just requires a few different things there, including what the Title I funds, how they're being utilized. And so for the subsequent school year, for school year 27-28, the state charter school will receive a preliminary Title I-A allocation, and then an application will then be completed as part of the unified application. That's like the larger application that is for the following school year, so 27-28. And then that's housed in the operating budget management system, which is also called OBMS. So that's essentially the process for determining eligibility. Again, the two sort of timeframes to be looking out for is going to be mid-September, and then for eligibility around February. So it's going to be really important to gather all of that information. That way, when we reach out in September, that'll be readily available in NOVA for us to look at and for us to use to determine that eligibility. Once a state charter school is eligible, they'll have a couple different options for what type of Title I Part A program they would like to operate. One would be that school-wide program, which in this program, all students are served. This allows for strategies to improve the entire educational program of the school. There is a 40% low-income percentage minimum in order to operate the school-wide program. If for some reason there isn't that 40% minimum, there can also be a waiver requested in order to operate this type of school-wide program. In this type of program, what's required is a school-wide program plan that's based on a comprehensive needs assessment. So in that school-wide program plan, it'll name the different strategies that the Title I-A program will use in order to help their students meet the greatest needs. There's also a targeted assistance program that can be operated. This does not require that minimum 40%, but what's different about this is it serves identified students who are at most risk of failure. And then this requires clear eligibility criteria and tracking. And so the school will determine what type of criteria is being used to determine which students are eligible for the Title I-A program. Sometimes a targeted assistance program is chosen to operate because it best serves the students who have the highest needs in the school. Sometimes it might just make a little bit more sense for schools to operate a targeted assistance program rather than a school-wide program. So that's why there are those two options there. A couple things to note about both of these programs is both models require intentional planning, and both programs require regular program evaluation. So if you do have any additional questions, we have our contact information here. Daniela Romero, she is the manager of the Student School and Family Support Bureau. She's the one who has information about for state charter schools, and then I am the Title I specialist. My email address and phone number is listed here as well. All right. Are there any questions before we continue?
Doesn't look like I see any.
All right.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome. Thank you. I'm just making sure that I have Carlos set up for the next couple of slides. Perfect. Okay, so then I'm going to pass it over to Carlos Contreras from Language and Culture Division. Carlos, let me make sure that these slides are ready for you. All right. Okay, Carlos, whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Jessica, for helping me setting up the PowerPoint. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Kat. I see your text in the chat. It's good to see you. It's good to see you all. I'm Carlos Contreras, the Title III and Title I Part C specialist with the Language and Culture Division. And I just wanted to make an announcement in relation to Title III. Hopefully, you have been a little familiar with Title III throughout your career, and specifically through an email communication that I sent back in December for anyone who is interested in applying for Title III funding. This is for anyone who is interested in applying for Title III funding for the next school year. So there is a form. It's pretty straightforward. There is just a matter of filling out a one-pager. We call it the intent to apply form, the Title III intent to apply form. It is due in February 17th, so it's coming up pretty soon. If you wish to be considered for a Title III subgrant allocation, please email this form by February 17th. There is a link in the presentation. If you see it in the third bullet point, or maybe it's the second bullet point, it says that it's available in the Language and Culture Division subpage. You can retrieve the form from there, and that form tells you where to email it to. Full disclosure, you're going to be emailing it to Damian Valdez. He's our financial analyst here in the Language and Culture Division, but all of the instructions are in the one pager. And yeah, can we move on to the next slide, please? I wanted to share this information about the consortium very likely because of the size of your schools. You'll probably need to join a consortium. This is based on EL student counts. So normally what I see is that LEAs need about 110 to 120 EL students to get an allocation over $10,000, meaning they are able to manage and administer their funding on their own. But for those who receive an allocation of less than $10,000, by federal law, they need to join a consortium and they need to designate a fiscal agent, right? So I'm letting you know this information because as important it is that you consider applying for Title III to support your English learners. If you get an allocation of less than $10,000, you will need to be working out on joining a consortium. It's very easy. You can join a consortium with a fellow school or with a school district or with an REC. And it's just a matter of filling out a consortium template that is also available in our website. And then you organize and you designate who is going to be the fiscal agent. So essentially the fiscal agent will process RFRs and do all of the fiscal aspect for you. But of course, as an LEA, you can choose to have control over your Title III program. You can choose how you are going to budget and utilize that funding, or something that I'm trying to promote, you can work within the consortium, organize and coordinate within the consortium, and have all of the consortium members maybe putting money into certain initiatives that you may have. There are 3 initiatives that need to happen by federal law. That is anything related to instruction. So Title III money needs to go to instructional activities. Can be tutoring, it can be materials, anything that looks like instruction. Professional development with focus on English learners. That's the second activity that the money needs to go to. And then the third one is parent, family, and community engagement activities for English learners. So again, In my experience, sometimes I see that LEA say, okay, I have $10,000 or less than $10,000. I need to join a consortium. And then I need to spend money on these three required activities. It's very little money. How am I gonna like do something effective if I'm splitting the money on three activities? And I'm going to tell you, it's supposed to be supplemental funding. It's supposed to supplement any of the baseline services that you already offer to your English learners. I've seen very successful and strategic plans that they spend less than $10,000 in a very strategic way and very effective. Or again, I'm calling out for consortiums to collaborate and coordinate on expenses. So if you want to spend on something that is probably way more than your budget allows, you can pay that bill in collaboration with the members of the consortium. So that being said, if you decide to join and to apply, if you decide to apply, sorry, for Title III funding, uh, set your mind to working on a consortium, and I'm more than happy to help you in working through the form and maybe connecting you to some RECs that we know manage Title III, or you're welcome to create your own consortium with your own group. Can we move on to the next slide, please, Jessica? That's pretty much it. Title III is pretty straightforward. I really hope that you have your English learners in mind. And of course, this is not a one-off opportunity. If you decide to pass this year, we'll be here next year, and you're more than welcome to apply anytime. Normally, the deadlines to apply is they stay the same. It's around February, the second week of February. So if you want to revisit this as an opportunity for your charter school, maybe November and December is a good time to start revisiting. And by all means, I'm going to be providing a lot of information about the program and about fiscal aspects in our spring budget conference coming up in March. So by all means, attend our conference, attend our presentation on Title III, and just connect with us, and we'll be happy to talk more about Title III and English learners. That's it. Any questions?
Buenos días.
Yes.
So you said that if like the three of us that are brand new schools can be a consortium?
Yes, you can choose to get together in a consortium. So you essentially create your own consortium. And normally the largest LEA becomes the fiscal agent. The reason is that we assume that the largest LEA has the most capacity to manage this, but you can designate a fiscal agent that you can all agree on.
So all three of us are pretty tiny. We're opening up with very small amount of students, pretty similar.
Okay.
So I'll talk to you more about that. Also, since none of us were on a email list to get the link for this, would you mind sharing that link so that we can directly go to it and apply if we want to?
Yeah, let me put it in the chat now. So
I just asked my business manager, is this going to be in the unified application as well?
So for it, thank you, Kat. For it to make it to the unified application, you need to apply for the funding first. If you don't apply for the funding, it won't populate in the unified application.
So a quick question, just by my calculations, you said that to get 10,000, you need like 100 students, or roughly. So that means that for this program, for each student that participates, you effectively get about $100 per student. Is that correct?
Yes, that's an accurate calculation, Mr. Collins. It's normally between $80 to $100 per English learner.
Okay. So we're a very, very small school. It wouldn't make a drop in the bucket, I don't think.
Right. And that's local control, right? Like I'm gonna tell you, we have districts and charter schools that apply for Title III funding as small as 3 students, and then of course we have the bigger ones. It's all local control. But let me put that link in the chat to get the intent to apply form. There it is. That's our subpage of the Language and Culture Division, and you will find the file in there. Sometimes it's a little buggy there. You may see an outdated form. It's still fine. If you see an outdated form, you send it our way, and we are still gonna count it. Any other questions?
Less of a question, more of a comment to the three charter schools. These and Carlos, if you can correct me, this is just for you need 100 students with EL designation, correct?
Thank you,
Um,
Greg. Yes.
yeah, so just for you all to know, like even our large schools may not even have like 100, students. It's probably much lower than that. Some schools only have 17 or whatnot. So even if the three of you formed a consortium, I don't know if you would have enough for the minimum number of EL students, and I just to point that out in case that you were wondering what the size is in these other schools.
Yes, thank you, Greg, for that. And just bear with me on some clarification. When we say minimum of EL students, there is no minimum. I mean, like I said,
Thank you. Yeah.
we have LEAs that have applied for funding with just three EL students, and then they join a consortium, and all together in the consortium, they have access to more funding, and they coordinate and they collaborate on how to distribute and pay for some of the expenses. So it's a way, the way I see it is it opens the door for collaboration within consortium members, and then that amount that everyone contributes can do something good for your 17, 15, 10 EL students that you may have.
Thank you for that clarification, Carlos. Yeah, I wasn't saying don't join a consortium. I just said that, yeah, I meant to indicate your consortium may have to be larger than just the three of your schools.
Oh, right. Yes, yes. And for that, thank you, Greg, for that clarification. And for that, you are free to do local control and connect with whoever you want to connect that has Title III funding, or you can ask for our assistance and we can refer you to a few RECs that we know work with Title III.
Okay, any other questions? All right, well, again, thank you, Carlos, for your presentation to our new schools. Thank you for your time.
Thank
So,
you. Congratulations, everyone.
yeah. That's all we have scheduled for today, so you guys get an extra half hour back. Yay! So,
Only
thank
one
you very
more.
much. Yeah, and we have one more, and yeah, we'll talk to you when you reach out. All right, thank you, everybody.